All right, we can get started. Actually, the mic's on. That worked. All right, we'll get started. Make a motion, open the Finance Committee for Wednesday, April 6th.
So moved.
All in favor? All
Aye.
opposed? Counselor Tallman, Bacon, Leahy, McGee are here, so is Counselor Sullivan. We'll announce whoever else comes in at the time. So we'll just go right down the agenda. Previous minutes of the meeting. Everyone got a chance to look at those?
Make a motion, accept them. Second.
All right, all's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Those are accepted, 4-0. All right, item 2, financial transfer request, $142,986.07 from 2013 bond principal to claims and damages. Make a motion to remove from the table.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, Kara, seeing how this is you.
A long one last time.
So this is a request for a transfer into the law department's claims and damages line item. And it is for the settlement of claims with the property owners of 394 High Street, which was MD Beauty Salon, in connection with the demolition of the Essex House. What you have in front of you that I'd emailed, and the packet that Todd has, is everything the council had asked for when we talked about it in executive session. It's a breakdown of everything that was paid as relocation payments for the business, the beauty salon. And I should note, Maria Ferrer and her attorney are here behind me. The business was relocated to Cabot Street, and she is operating there. But the city was obligated to pay the moving and expenses associated with her setting up business there. So there is a breakdown of that payment. And then we've come to a settlement of any claims that is two parts. It involves the city's going to actually take the property, and will be the owner of the property, obviously adjacent, to the 400 High Street lot, and the plan would be to eventually finish the demolition. It was determined after much debate and research that the cost of demolishing would be less than the cost of trying to rehab the property. And so what's before you tonight actually is a transfer for that amount. The fair market value that we agreed upon in our discussions with the property owners and their attorney was $169,000. You'll see in the appraisal, which you have a copy of, which was done by Reynolds Appraisal, that they estimated the value between $165 and $175, and we essentially met in the middle. That was based on their different appraising methods. And then the 142 is minus taxes that were owed as of April 1st, 2014, and that's the date that Maria actually moved out of the building. So it's been now over 2 years that she's actually left the building. She vacated in April because the original plan was to do some temporary shoring work, and from there, the saga, but so the 142 is what's before you tonight, and the second part of it is compensation for essentially what was a taking for the past 2 years, and that amount is 127. And the plan for that, and I certainly appreciate Maria's cooperation with that, is to pay that out of the next fiscal year's budget, that it would hopefully be approved within the budget so that it could be paid on July 1st and wouldn't require a further transfer. And you should also have a copy, in the packet I gave Todd, is a copy of the full settlement agreement as well as the proposed order of taking and the appraisal and the breakdown of the settlement.
So just one thing, Kara. So 169 was the fair market value minus the taxes, $26,013, which came to the 142. And then it says temporary taking, insurance, alarm system, mortgage interest, 127,219. What was that number again?
Well, the total settlement is 296, 219 minus the 26 for taxes. So it's the one.
But you have 169, so that's why I'm trying to.
Right,
figure
so
out your
we've
numbers.
split it up so that
Okay.
it's actually gonna be done in two payments.
Oh, so are you adding the 35?
The 35, so, okay, so on this page, yeah.
I'm just looking at your spreadsheet.
The relocation, the 35, that's already been paid.
Paid,
In
that's paid.
connection with the relocation of the business. And then on the other side is essentially the full settlement agreement broken down into the two parts. The taking of the building, which is the 142, transfer request, and then there's also an additional 127, but the plan is for that to be budgeted in next year's budget and paid out of
All
that.
right, so that's where I want clarification.
Okay.
So the total is 142,896 plus 127.
Right.
And the 127 represents the tell me that number. How do we get to that number?
So that number, we had obviously a negotiation with the property owners and their attorney, and, went back and forth, and essentially came to an agreement on the total number. And so I don't have that other part broken down dollar for dollar, but, there was insurance that she maintained on the building, an alarm system, in large part, and this was obviously difficult to quantify, there was an extensive amount of personal property that was in the building that was not able to be retrieved or that was damaged, because when they moved, we were not expecting that the damage was going to be what happened. We thought, that they would be able to go back in, and so, Maria had moved what she needed for the business, but there were other storage areas that still had other property in it, and then also a large chunk of that would represent the fact that she had a tenant that was a church renting the second floor that had been paying her $2,500 a month. So that number, it really came down to a negotiation, and coming to the final amount, and then seeing, what the compensation for the taking would be.
So the total amount that'll be paid to this person over the next 2 years is $270,203.07, roughly.
When you add the 142 and the 120, yeah.
All right, open up to questions? No, but yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you, Kara. So when we entered into this agreement with the demo company, I remember distinctly the mayor standing at that microphone saying the day he signed the contract, the demo company was liable for any damages associated with the demo. This damage occurred after the contract was signed. So why are we being asked to take money from the taxpayers to pay this when the demo company is liable?
Well, some of this, as I said, Maria actually vacated the building April 1st, 2014. That was prior to the contract with NASD being signed. It has, obviously, the council has made the point, and it is our intention to pursue NASD for the damages that we have incurred. We've been in communication with them recently with back and forth of some letters and phone calls, and it absolutely is something that we intend to pursue. I don't really want to get into that too much more, not being in an executive session, but any kind of litigation or resolution with NASD is going to take some time, and the fact is that this property owner has been out of her building for 2 years, and as long as, until we resolve this, I mean, we essentially also are still responsible for the rent at her new location, and it kind of leaves her in limbo. So I think it's actually in the best interest of the city to resolve this now and bring some finality to this for us and for the property owners. And we absolutely will pursue whatever we can against the contractor. But it's not realistic to think that we would recover anything from the contractor and wait several years for that to happen and not settle this with the property owner.
Can I ask you on that? Because we've seen this one before. I call it the old bait and switch. Remind you of the retirement board. We funded them some money when they were behind. Then they turned around, this is when George Neves was here, God rest his soul, and he said, well, since it's now funded, there is no more issue, therefore, there's no lawsuit that they could bring to recoup the money for us that we gave. So as we paid off the liability that they had, which then he said, since there's no standing anymore because the liability's gone, we can't make a claim. And that was it, we couldn't recoup our money for the city side.
Well,
I'll
I
pull
mean,
up the files on it, but I remember that as clear as day.
and I don't
So
know
we're gonna have
what,
that same issue?
I don't know what that scenario was, and I'm certainly not gonna, I mean, I'm sitting here telling you right now, we're gonna pursue this against NASD. I don't know how the fact that we've settled a claim with the property owner would impact that lawsuit for breach of contract, for negligence, breach of warranties, Chapter 93A. Those are, you know, we've put them on notice through demand letters. Those are the claims we're gonna make. The fact that we settle this with the property owner isn't.
So they're on notice for a claim, what's the claim for? Total?
Well, at this point, this is part of it. We've received a demand letter as well from Old San Juan Bakery. We've received a demand letter
I'm not
from,
asking about them, we put NASD or however you call them on notice.
there's not a precise amount because we paid an
We
amount.
settled tonight
Right,
for $270,000.
that would
Do
be
we get to
part-
recoup the 270 technically against NASD, or a portion of that?
Well, I
or-
can't, I mean, we would allege, well, we would obviously allege that against them. I can't say how any kind of litigation is ultimately gonna play out. I mean, I think it's important to keep in mind too, that part of this, the city always was going to be responsible for. Like I said, Maria vacated the building on April 1st. The demolition contract with NASD wasn't signed until I think it was October or November. So, I mean, we were always knew there was going to be some claim. I mean, the relocation as well, I mean, we were gonna be responsible for that, so.
The 35,851, that's relocation, that's on us.
Well, a large part of that would be part of a potential claim, you know, part of a potential claim against NASD, and again, I don't really wanna go too far down this road in a public meeting, but is that the timelines in the contract weren't met. And so, you know, that would be part of a claim. I mean, if it results in litigation, you don't have to be specific down to the penny in your complaint, so.
But
it's-
realistically, if we're spending 270, what do you think the chances are in getting the 270 back? I'm not saying we need more, but you've done these cases
I mean, I'm not
before.
gonna sit here and will tell you we would try and recover everything that we spend, but I can't, I'm not gonna make any promises as to what the outcome of a lawsuit or
I'm not asking to make
anything would be.
promises, I'm asking for some type of,
Well, I've said,
information.
I just said, we would try and recover as much as we spend. That will be part of a claim, but at this point, you know, that's possibly a pending litigation matter.
Linda?
Speaking for myself and certainly bending to the will of the committee, I want to be briefed in executive session since our attorney doesn't feel comfortable to speak of the legal aspects of this in public session prior to making any vote on this agenda
Okay.
item. I don't feel like we have enough information or that she's comfortable in providing us with enough information to make a vote tonight.
Okay. That's understandable. Kajimi, questions?
Well,
Well, let's go through questions.
No, go ahead.
I mean, I'm happy to do that. I mean, can we do that?
You cannot do it
Right.
tonight because it has to be on notice, open meeting law.
Well, you don't, I mean, you have this subject on the, okay.
Correct.
I guess I would
We've gone
just.
through this one a number of times
Yeah.
as to how to move into executive session.
At this point right now, frankly, I mean, there hasn't been anything filed. We've been in communication back and forth. I'm not sure that there's too much more to say at this point. It's ongoing. So it's just, I would just ask that you keep in mind that the longer this agreement the longer this issue is not resolved, we're gonna continue paying the rent at the business's new location, which is $1,500 a month, and in fairness to Maria, they've waited, quite some time. We finalized the settlement back in January and submitted the transfer. Obviously, it's contingent on an appropriation, but there's potential for further lawsuits, obviously, from the property owners the longer this remains unresolved, so.
Jimmy?
Yeah, thank you. So my question is in regards to something you just recently said. So currently, we're paying $1,500 a month for her facility, which I've driven by. It's a pretty big place, right?
I haven't actually been inside, but yes, I've seen the,
My question is, when somebody says that they have a tenant, what proof do we have? And I'm not saying that
we have a
Don't
copy of
swap.
the lease.
you have a copy of the lease, because $2,500 a month for a church, it seems like a lot of money in downtown Hoyoke.
I have the lease, I mean, that's, so.
All right.
Mike?
Kara, do you know what the statute of limitations is? How long before you can't file a claim anymore?
Contract action is, the minimum is 6 years.
Okay, and as I understand it, even though it'd be filed against NASD, what we'd be going after, they carried a general liability policy, and it's their insurance company we'd be going after.
I would, right, I mean, I would think, and we've sent them a demand letter. Yeah, right, it would be their responsibility to refer it to their insurer, absolutely,
So, I mean, right now, all our rights are protected?
yes.
Anyone else? Peter, do you have any questions? All right, so I guess my issue is, one, when this whole thing of Essex came up, my argument had nothing to do with this property, it was give it back to the LLC so we didn't take on any more damage. This body voted not to do that, and in essence, keep it with us so we could take the building down. It's an ultimately ripple effect of another 270, and then soon the other stores surrounding it might have a claim against us as well. This is the same thing I preached about with Essex. We knew we had to take it down, we knew it was a liability, but not to force it on the city and give it back to the LLC, which is what we had a legal right to do. We chose not to because we're afraid to try and take on LLCs because we don't think we can attack them, which I highly disagree. So for me, this is just another ripple effect of us not going after shell companies who use the city for their tax breaks and everything else. So for me, I have a huge problem with this because this is the same thing I was pointing out way back when. Had nothing to do with Essex, had everything to do with a 3-owner LLC who own their mansions in Boston and Chelsea and everything else, and I pulled up their properties and I showed it to everybody. $1 million homes. Your taxpayer dollars pay for these things. They didn't pay 1 cent. That's my problem. So for me, 270,000, I have not the whole police force, I have a nice police force right here. I can't even get them 3 cars to put on the streets. This is nonsense. I'm not voting for this. Not until you can guarantee me that I'm gonna get paid back my 270. So if you wanna go to executive session, I'll go to it. We'll file a special meeting for it, but I'm not paying a red cent for this. It wasn't ours to begin with.
Okay. I'm not gonna sit here and make promises about the amount of money that we can recover.
You can't.
I can't, and I've told you that we're gonna do everything that we can in our power, but that's all I can say.
Is there a motion for this one?
What are our alternatives?
Keep it tabled, is that what you're?
You can table it, you can make a motion to pass it, you can make a motion to deny it. Now, remind you, we didn't have any of this money. This was found in bond principal from a stake in the treasurer's office.
Big mistake.
$505,000 mistake, which is now, we're being used to pay a portion of it to then carry on a liability for next year's taxpayers. That should also be reminded to people. So, give me a motion.
I'll make a motion to table and call for executive session on an update relative to going after the company.
I think we table it, but the executive session would be a different order.
Yeah, you have to file it.
Well, I'm just
Well, you can do it that way.
stating the reason.
Yeah.
That's all.
I just,
Second.
Seconded, Peter, you
no, I
go.
just have a comment. If she stated that we have executive session, nothing's going to change. She already stated what she's going to do. How is that going to change anything?
Well, there's some more information she could give, but she can't give current.
I know. Oh, there is. Okay. Okay.
Well, there's really, I mean, there honestly isn't, because nothing's been
Okay.
filed. I mean, it's just opinions about what we might or might not be able to do, and more,
Well, I
you know,
personally would like to
specifics,
see the
but,
correspondence. I would like to see that our
I mean, those are public,
are limited and covered.
those
we
are
don't have
public
them.
records. I'm happy to provide them. We've sent a demand letter to NASD. They recently set additional correspondence. I'm happy to provide those.
All right, the motion was to table it and then request executive session, which will file a separate order for that. It was seconded, all is in favor?
Aye.
All is opposed?
No.
3-1. It's Jimmy?
Yep.
Linda?
Yep.
Todd? Peter, no. Item number 3, make a motion to remove table, order that the city council adopt, attach the order taking for the 394. It'd be the same thing, so make a motion to table it.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
3-1. Make a motion to remove from the table request of $50,000 from free cash to special counsel.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed?
Thank you.
Oh, you got, sorry, Linda. I thought I gave it
Are
to you and I
these-
missed him.
Okay.
There's that, and then there's,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love how this.
all right. Everyone's got their copies? All right, over to you, Kara.
Sure, so this is, this hopefully is not a surprise. It's been mentioned in the communications to the committee through the auditor that we're going to need an additional appropriation for outside counsel. Having reviewed the budget and what will be pending, the request is for an additional $50,000, which, the original appropriation from the council was $100,000. We transferred 55 when we didn't fill the third assistant position. And the additional 50 would make the total 205, which is actually in line with what's been spent in the past few years. I think last year it was a little bit less. It was 187. The year before that was 206, and in 2013 it was 274. So I would anticipate that, obviously, well, the additional 50 should be enough to cover the rest of the fiscal year. There's obviously, uncertainties in what will happen with litigation. So the spreadsheet shows everything that's been paid through this fiscal year. And then the other is a list of the cases. There's currently 3 that are being handled by outside counsel. The Jacqueline Williams case is Sullivan, Hayes, and Quinn. The Suffolk Parking Street Garage contract dispute is Buckley Richardson. We mediated that in December and just finalized the agreement with that. And so that I would expect maybe only 1 bill from Buckley Richardson. And then obviously the Wilcox cases are both 2 workers' compensation cases and the Wilcox civil action.
All right, Jimmy?
Yeah, I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and it just doesn't seem to go anywhere. You're looking at an attorney who lives in Florida that's getting paid $8,700 one month, $8,900 the following month. September, $12,350 for 3 cases, $14,000 for 3 cases. Now we're at December, $9,000 for the same 3 cases. January, $8,300, and February, $14,000. And February is a leap year, plus there's a holiday in it. So what that comes down to, 19 days in February. So you divide that. I'm doing it off the top of my head. I think that's $1,100 a day. Is my math wrong?
I
Normally
haven't
isn't.
figured it out by day. I can tell you that in February, there were at least three full days of depositions,
Okay, so it's
Probably-
24 hours.
at least, plus preparation for those. That's what if the Wilcox case, I think I've said it's
Wait, so that's all it's for? So it's 3 days plus prep, so
There
it's
were-
$14,000 for 3 days worth of work?
well, no,
plus
there's
prep?
other work that goes into that, but that's what's been going on in that case, which is a 100-plus paragraph complaint naming the city, the geriatric authority, all the individual board members. So there has been a 2-day deposition of Donald Wilcox, a day deposition of Patty Devine, and a day deposition of Kathy Brown. Those all require extensive preparation as well. This case is a significant case. It's not,
huge
there
case.
could be potentially additional depositions. The geriatric authority and the plaintiff moved to extend the discovery deadline, which we opposed, but the court granted. So there could be additional depositions of city personnel. There could be additional depositions of each one of the geriatric authority board members. There's been extensive written discovery, again, with the 6 or 7 board members. There were sets of interrogatories and requests for production of documents to each one of them, plus to the board as an entity and the city as an entity. So you're talking about, thousands of pages of documents, extensive written discovery, extensive depositions so far, and I would expect probably additional depositions still to come.
Okay, so I believe, maybe you correct me if I'm wrong, one of the last things that their board, the geriatric board, did was use the money that they had left for board of directors insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't the board of directors insurance covering their depositions? Why is
It
this?
is, they're represented by counsel through their insurer. Morrison Mahoney is representing them.
So
through
this is
their-
additional?
Where this is on behalf of the city that's named as an individual defendant. We don't have insurance. That policy covered the geriatric authority and the geriatric authority board members.
Why would?
City is being represented by Attorney Emma.
And really? And why wouldn't, at that time, the geriatric board put the city of Holyoke on it as well?
And that goes to the whole basis of the lawsuit, that the geriatric authority is a separate entity from the city.
All right, thank you. Yeah, one last thing.
Yeah,
Can you provide me with like a sample of months of billing
Sure.
and also the contract that you have? Thank you.
Amanda?
So am I understanding that the attorney that's representing us is doing the exact same thing that the attorney representing the Geriatric Authority is doing?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, we're two distinct entities with two distinct interests. Our attorney is representing the city. And the attorneys for the Geriatric Authority are representing the Geriatric Authority as an entity and the individuals.
So are the claims against the city different than the claims
There are,
against the Geriatric Authority?
Yep.
Unique claims? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a point of
Sure,
information
sure.
question to the chair. How much do we have in free cash in the city right now?
Forget the bond stuff because that's still in limbo. We're at 526. But you have the buybacks for the police, that's coming up. We did pay the veteran benefits, and we did the police overtime. So that's,
My understanding from the auditor was that before these were filed, and they were just filed last night, that if everything that was still pending was approved, that there was 80,000, 83.
well, you were at 80, well, that was in limbo too because Sandy Smith had 50-something. Bellamy had 88, which, once again, were two different numbers. If you go with Bellamy's, it would have been, because he only wanted to address the things that were in the agenda at the time or in
Yeah,
the
that
jacket.
was-
This is a new item.
Right, so when
Well, it
I,
would be 50 off of, call it 88.
Right,
If that holds
that's-
true.
yes, that's what Bellamy told me when I initiated this request.
So so kind of go through what, it's the reverse of what Brian Smith used to do. Brian would say, here's all your orders, I count them as passed until they come back, and then I put the money back in. Bellamy's saying is, here's your whole number, here are the things before you, if you pass it, take it out. So, if we were to do police overtime, police buyback, police vehicles, this, and then there's a couple other things, you'd be down to about 38,000, give or take, because you gotta remember, Sandy Smith came out with a different number.
Right. And we
So-
just had snow with contractors out. And we don't know where we are with that budget either.
From the last assessment, there was still money left in that line item for a snowstorm. We had a snowstorm, on the assumption that it covered it, until we're told otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? I mean, I spoke with Kara about this when she came in about the 55,000 to take from the attorney that we were going to hire, and she said she was coming back. She couldn't make it any more clear. And I said, if we have the money, so it's all been addressed. She has done the breakdown.
I make a motion to approve.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
I'm looking through your update here, and one of the things that's listed was some of the city council who successfully won in court again for the summary judgment decision. I haven't talked to you about this. Are you guys moving forward to appeal that?
I'm
I'm not sure if I can ask that because we're
No,
not opposite sides.
there's been motions to reconsider filed with Judge Mason, and so that's that.
Would that be a part of this $50,000? And if so, would I have to recuse myself?
No, and that's been handled internally. None of the funds are for that case.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'll second her motion on
All right, so the motion is to approve. It was seconded. All those in favor? All those
Aye.
opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I have one more too.
Is it the next one?
Yes,
Oh, you're the in-state travel, huh?
I said that last night.
I
yeah.
know, I'm only kidding. All right, so item number 5, make a motion to move from the table.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? This is a request, financial transfer from paid principal clerk to in-state travel, $500.
Where'd you go?
Where'd you go?
We haven't gone anywhere. So
Oh, it's denied. No, I'm
this was, you may or may not know, our clerk took a job upstairs. I say upstairs in the annex with the Board of Health. So we've been without a clerk for about a month or so. We have posted the position. We took a look at the job description and made some changes, and I've just recently finalized that with Bob. So there's a little bit of extra money in that line item. Our in-state travel right now has about, I have the amount, I think it's about $240 left. And it's basically just, we have, there's 4 of us. Our 2 newer attorneys, Paul and Will in particular, have taken over the bulk of the housing court work, so they're both going to court for a number of cases.
And I've been told they're doing an excellent job.
They're doing a great job.
Pass it
And I can say too, in all honesty, in Springfield, they raised the parking rates, they doubled them. And so, in the parking garages, so
Make
this
a motion to
is.
pass it.
Thank you.
Drive slow.
All right, so motion is to approve.
We try and carpool, but it doesn't always work out.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? All right, passed. Is that it, Kara?
That's it, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next one is item number 6. Motion removed from the table, request of $64,463 from demolition to pay demo supervisors, pay demo workers. Move from the table,
moved.
all's in favor,
Aye.
all's opposed? Damien, how are you?
Thank you. You bring a pair of glasses for this?
Thank you.
Oh, man. Please tell me that's not color-coded either, for a colorblind guy.
Yeah.
All right, you want to tell us what's going on?
Sure. So this order was something I believe that was first filed a while ago, and the intent and plan was to take our demolition line item money through the budget and fund 3 positions to do property maintenance and demolition in-house, primarily property maintenance and light demolition. And now that it's come to a couple months before the end of the fiscal year, it's not that the order is not valid, it's that the plan, I think, should change a little bit in that we always intended on hiring, if you were to grant this, the supervisor first 3 months ahead of time before the other 2, to get somebody on board, to get them trained, to get a big plan going, and have them involved in the hiring of the other 2. So, as we are today, I believe it's 2 line items. It's one for the property management supervisor and one other line item for what would be 2 employees as workers in the DPW union. And I would only ask if we continue talking about this, if we could separate them, because this is being put forward in the budget for next year. So with the timing, it would only be necessary to fund the supervisor at
So
this
the
point.
$64,463 is just for the supervisor,
That's actually for all 3.
for all 3?
That would be
Okay.
enough at that time to have funded all 3. At this point, the auditor would have to fine tune it depending on, just like any other time we, do a transfer of money for a position, depends on when it was approved, and then it would be adjusted to the exact amount.
Okay, but, so, we approved tonight, you can go out and hire for 3 positions, but you're only gonna hire for supervisor now, and then next fiscal year, you're gonna go out and hire for the other 2. Is that what you're trying to do, or, because I'm just trying to figure out how the money would break down for 3 positions, or you, because you said I'm just gonna hire for 1 now.
Right, because the intent was to hire a supervisor 3 months ahead of time.
Yep.
And being as that 3 months from now, it's gonna be the next fiscal year, that money just wouldn't be used. If you transferred it in, it'll just go back to free cash. We're not gonna jump the gun and prematurely seek that and have it happen. So at this point, it could be, I checked with Kara, who left, I think at this point, that because they are two separate line items, they could be separated, and it could just be approval for one and not the other.
Jimmy?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I think that your department's understaffed. However, having said that, I thought, just some time ago that we were in a hiring freeze. Is that not the case? Todd, anyone?
Well, we voted for it.
This position?
No. We voted for the hiring freeze.
Oh, right.
Whether or not that's being complied with is a different issue.
I mean, I do recognize his department through Scott, there's more work. I mean, you could have double the team that you have now, and you'd still be busy every single day.
Let me,
How much is this for?
I'm just trying to go through the numbers here real quick, Jimmy. So 64 is approved. You're only gonna use roughly about, for the end of the year, to hire a supervisor, 20, 30? What, just guess.
The position, probably 10.
10, all right. Which then is 54 goes back into free cash. Because you're not gonna hire until next year.
Well, it's currently in our demolition line item, so hypothetically, it could go back to free cash, but it would probably be used towards demoing a house or something.
But that's what I'm saying is, if we pass it here, you're taking it from demo to fund positions, of which you're saying, I'm not gonna fill 2 of them. So should we have a new order just to address the supervisor for 10,000? Because all we have before us today is the 64,000. In essence, we have to go by what's before us. We can't break things up. That has to be done with a new order.
I think it was just misprinted because there's no way we could transfer 64. It's separate line items in the budget, so that the actual request would have been for multiple line items, right?
No, and I'll explain it. In essence, 64,000 is gonna come from demolition. It's gonna go to 2 different line items. But before us is to act on it, that's the package. I can't say, all right, I'll give you the 27,500 for the supervisor, but we're not gonna vote on the 36. We can't do that in finance. It has to be a different transfer.
Sure.
That's why so can it be redone to meet what you're looking for is my question, to then be brought back up in finance, or how do you wanna?
Well, I think if to really break it down, because it's really close to the end of the fiscal year, to get this off the plate for everybody, we could transfer it in. It's not gonna be 64. That, from my understanding, is never the way it's been handled in the past with a position, because, again, when I write a request, or any department head writes a request for 64, that's based on a guesstimate of the date that it's going to go forward.
Yep.
But we have no guarantee when the council will take it up and when it'll go through. And Brian Smith, former city auditor, would just, at the end of this meeting tonight, if you said yes, give an exact amount to the supervisor and an exact amount for the 2 workers. That's what I think that would probably be the best thing, because it's only gonna be maybe 17,000 out of that. I'm not sure, just a guess. And the rest would still remain in the demolition line item. It'd be more.
It wouldn't. It would come out from demolition. That's what I'm saying. But move on from there is, can you explain a little bit about what you're trying to do with the change, which is a supervisor and 2 workers for demolition? What's the overall goal?
Sure.
I know and then Mike wanted to jump in on this one too, so.
Well,
turn to him.
I'll let Damian take the
Yep,
lead and
okay.
fill.
So, to give you an idea of, and that's part of what I've handed out to everybody, is this colored sheet is really, you don't have to read through it, and I know it's really small, and this is a cut from the problem property group that we started up again, and it's just the first 35. It ends halfway the way it printed, but it's the first 35 off the list of 100 or something. And they're in a priority of what the worst buildings are, what need the attention right away, versus what's, down the list you go, it's not as bad, but they all need some kind of action taken on them.
These are the buildings with the X's on them?
Not necessarily, but by chance, when you look down the list, there is an X down the list, a few columns in, and that is symbolic of the fire department having an X on it. But as you get further down the list, we have some on there that aren't necessarily Xed out. So the ones highlighted in yellow are city-owned, to give you an idea of how many of them are city-owned, and there really are a problem. The ones I just threw pink over was ones that have taxes that are so far gone in delinquency that there's no way a receiver is going to ever entertain them. And that's given if they're even residential. So if you look, there's not many options on the first 10, other than we're doing something with the property, or we're not. And, you know, the buildings aren't gonna fix themselves or demo themselves. So we have a multi-million-dollar problem. And another column in here is when we first realized this was a problem, I put the year in to give you an idea that some of these, you know, they go back to the 90s. Some as early as the 80s, but most of these have been problems for over 15 years, and it's not to blame anybody, it's just saying that these problems aren't going away. And, you know, in 15 years from today, you're gonna see ones from 2015, 16, 17. Holyoke's got a lot of uniqueness to it in that it's a great big city that had a population 50% more than what it is today, and the people left, but the buildings didn't. So we have buildings that aren't maintained, they're not being occupied, they're not being used as businesses. They're being underutilized, you know, so you have some people using a first floor of a building and not the next 3 floors. They're using them up and they're leaving. I mean, this isn't news to anybody here. So this is just a unique solution for the problem. Came out of a lot of research, talked to a lot of professionals in the field, demolition consultants. Steve Neese works for the city now for many years for doing, you know, the asbestos and hazardous waste end of the demolition. Talked to Bill Fuqua, who said this is a good idea. He would like to see it happen because it really is a bridge between the building department and the DPW. Other communities, this sort of program would live in the DPW. He doesn't have the manpower. He doesn't have the desire to add on more management to his department. So we talked a lot, you know, between departments and thought this is one solution. It's not necessarily going to pick up every building. It wouldn't tackle 400 High Street, like, you know, as a discussion earlier in terms of demolition, but it could have went after 400 High Street to prevent that from happening. So,
Can I jump in now?
Linda's got a question, then Mike.
Is there any way that we could set these positions up similar to like we did with the creative arts position, where we put it in place for X amount of time to see if we're able to achieve what we have as the goals within it, to see if it will work in the way that we would hope it would work? Because I haven't had a chance, in all honesty, we just got this stuff, so I haven't had a chance to look it over in any detail. But it looks like we're creating permanent positions, which would then create an expectation of, you know, permanent jobs for people. And then we get in the catch-22 with the condition of the city on being able to fund the positions and the benefits and all of that, referencing Counselor Leahy's freeze question.
I agree with you, but the only problem is who would apply for a job that's only lasts a year?
Well, people do, you know, the grant positions and stuff like that. So I'm just asking it as a question if it's a,
I mean, if you want the, I would have no problem with it. I mean, I agree, Councilor Leahy, I think it would be difficult to get people into a multi sort of hat position to begin with at the wages. I think the supervisor position, which is in the professional supervisors group, appears to be something that we wouldn't have a problem getting somebody involved based on.
would or wouldn't?
Would not, based on conversations with people in the profession, that we would have a lot of applicants. And based on what we've created in the DPW union, because it's really DPW work, hoisting operators and heavy equipment operators, they believe that wouldn't be, Bill Fuqua himself told me, it wouldn't be an issue, that he might even see some of the guys he has working there wanting to have a change, a lateral move. It's not so much a concern, I think, because if it wasn't a program that worked, I would say we just don't fund it, and I'm
in
reluctant.
the future?
Right, I mean, I would have no problem, I'm reluctant to even want to get involved in adding more work to my own, you know, I have
Yeah.
plenty of work myself, I don't want to create a higher burden for myself, but I think the city needs something. We need a solution that, for the bigger scope of things, and we have millions of dollars of problem.
Right.
And we have no real solution. We could bond, we could take out loans, we could play the blame game on, going and saying this person, that person, the people in the past, but that's not what I see every day. I go out, I see it, I see a problem, I say, we gotta fix it, and this is just one answer,
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll break this down a little better for you and give you some good examples of where this would pay back to the city in exponentially in what we can accomplish with what we put aside every year in demolition funds anyways, or even sometimes don't put anything in. What just happened with the armory, okay? If we had a person, right now, the supervisor position, all right? He's a heavy equipment operator. He's a licensed asbestos inspector or supervisor. He's not gonna go in there and do the asbestos work, all right? But he can oversee that work, or subcontractors doing that, but he'll also be able to keep his workers safe, keep the public safe, and know what the scope of the actual demolition of the actual project's gonna be. In the case of the armory, we knew the building was going in rough shape already. It had approached beyond being able to be saved. He could have contracted, the supervisor could have contracted with a company to come in and remove the slate roof. That would have brought into the city coffers $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. Okay, that's money, positive money coming in, no money going out in disposal, landfill, hauling the stuff away, as we're facing right now. The same could have been done with all the bricks. The same could have been done with all the steel, so that when now, under his supervision, okay, to make sure everything went properly and accordingly, and some of the preliminary knockdown, instead of another contractor coming in, he could have handled that stuff himself, just one guy. And then the rest goes out. And it's kind of a holistic approach. If you look at some of the other stuff we've got in front of the city council now, some of the changes in purchasing, because when we bring it in line with what we're trying to do with the state, he wouldn't have to, under $5,000 or some thresholds for $5,000, some for 10, some for 35. He knows who these sources are. He knows who the competitors are. He knows what the fair pricing is. They can make a good business decision, is what the state, if we bring ourselves in line with the state ordinance. So instead of waiting till this stuff is laying in the middle of the street or laying in a contaminated basement hole, it can be addressed ahead of time. Right there, this guy has just saved the city a couple $100,000 on his first day on the job. All right, the time he would spend, he'd have spent 1 or 2 days over there with a small excavator or a backhoe doing the preliminary work. You call in the Vintage Slate out of Vermont, they take care of their piece. And some of the other packages that a supervisor here could do on a project like this, and think a little bit ahead now, it isn't done yet. We're talking about trying to include in a bond the field house at, over at McKenzie. Once this stuff is on the ground, he could bring in the guys from the sheriff's department to put the bricks on pallets. It could be done as summer jobs like we used to do with, getting kids jobs up at the reservoir and, and stuff like that. It's just putting bricks on skids. And there's only 2 or 3 buyers out there for this stuff, all right? And it's not huge revenue, but it's when it's, even though it's a small amount of revenue coming in, it's hundreds of thousands that aren't being spent on waste. Other things, a good supervisor here, the other things he can do. The slate could have been made available to the historic district up in the Highlands for, set aside for that kind of stuff. These are the decisions they can make. We're going to set aside 20% of it for the Victorians in Holyoke and stuff like this and other renovations. So that's the logic behind it. When Damien says a couple of $1 million worth of demolition, I'm telling you, he's candy coating it for you. If we were to take on what needs to be done in this town, you're talking about bonding, you're talking $25 to $50 million if we keep on putting this stuff out. We're taking down 2 or 3 buildings a year, and 6 are coming down the pipe, down the pipeline. We're not making any progress. It's going in the wrong direction. The I mean, the benefits, like I said, the benefits are going to be exponential. We've proven this in what we're doing now on the project down along Water Street. We got a quote from NASD for the same demolition down there, and this is not done at prevailing wage. The job that Glenn Shealy's undertaken here in the city, they quoted $12 million for that. It's going to be done for about $2 million. So that's the kind of saving you're talking is, times 5, times 6 is the bang for the buck on this for what is spent having an in-house crew doing this, as opposed to keep on going out and handling this the way we've been handling it. Now, that's just in a controlled demolition. When something comes down, like it did at Parsons, all right, and it goes into a contaminated hole that's full of asbestos or PCBs, everything on the site, hundreds of thousands of tons, are all now considered contaminated. That's all stuff that could have been removed ahead of time by this crew under proper supervision. It's not necessarily them doing the work. These are some of the things I've talked about, David, ahead of time. They'll be doing some work. Their scope will be limited. You're not going to want to take on the liability, for example, even though these guys are licensed and trained for asbestos work, they're not going to do the actual asbestos work, right? There's too much other stuff going on, but you want the guys trained at that level so that they can recognize it when they see it. You find some of these contaminants in places that you'd never, ever think about looking. When people talk about PCBs, they're in the light ballast right here. The mercury, they're in these old light bulbs and stuff like that. Floor tiles at Lynch School, they contain asbestos, and you got to have a crew that knows what to look for and how to handle the stuff, and how to treat it, and how to put it out, and what contractors to hire. So it's a good program.
As I look over this list, how many of these buildings could be taken over by like a receivership? If we utilize a receivership program that Springfield utilizes also well.
Okay, so the first thing is the receiverships can only be done on residential. And so
Commercial.
I couldn't give you a concrete by looking, because they're not really noted. It would be off the top of my head.
Oh, that's fine. I didn't realize that. So receivership's only residential, not commercial?
Right, and there is some, and that's why in highlighting these, I can tell you, some of these hypothetically, like 107 Clemente is a city-owned building, it's an apartment building, that could be a receiver, but there's no receiverships for city-owned buildings anyway. And then the ones that are in pink are properties that are residential possibly, but they're not feasible, because a receiver's not gonna dump money into a building if they can't get it back, because they don't get out of paying the taxes. So we would have to take it first, and then but once it's city-owned, you're not gonna do a receiver. It'd be more suitable to do a auction or a RFP or something.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, Mike.
So another couple of examples where you see and the RFPs and stuff like that. Hallmark is one of the buildings, if you think about it, that we've had out there. I think we've had 2 or 3 RFPs out on it. Nobody's responded at all. We've got a couple of people that are interested in the site, though. The asbestos has been removed already. That was mostly abated. There's just some contaminated soil there. That was abated, I think, 20 years ago, and the building's still sitting there. Once again, a crew like Damien's got here, it would be nothing. That would be 3 hours work to knock that thing down so it's just on the ground, and then allow the brick pickers to come in, handle the rest of the disposal yourself, and then put out an RFP when you've got a clean lot. Or even right now, there's available, people that would take it for $1, but it would get the liability off the city's hand, and it'd be back on the tax rolls within 6 months. And it's languished like this. If you look at it, it's one of the most embarrassing properties in the city. It's right across from Rucky's. I don't know if any of you noticed it or not, but it's disgusting. And there's homeless people living in it, which, as we all know, there's another lawsuit waiting to happen, because some lawyer will pick up that case for the homeless person.
So Damien, this is all, we got the memorandum of agreement tonight. with regards to it, they're all gonna be under local 1459? All three positions?
No, one, the supervisors and the professional supervisors association,
All right, so that'll be under the professional supervisors and the two employees will be under,
DPW. I'm not familiar with the number, but yep.
okay.
And could I just follow up on, the Hallmark building, Council Sullivan's talking about is 160 Water Street, and it's a good example. 160 is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down here. The estimated demolition on that is 1.3 million. That's the cost that we had. These numbers, if I put them in there, it's because we've gotten a quote at some point, an estimate, we've gotten something. If it was 10 years ago or last year, either way, if we had something, I put it in. That's the cost. Nobody's gonna touch that property. It's not going anywhere. There is a lot of interest in the land, but it's just gonna sit there. It's city-owned, and even a crew of 3 guys, they're not gonna do that overnight. Them doing that would pay for the entire program for 10 years in terms of the cost savings. It's not, one of the biggest things here is we can look at it as saving money by doing as much demo as we are now, or we're gonna get more out of it. We can spend the same amount of money, let's say 300, we spend, looking back, 10 years, an average of $440,000 a year on demolition. That's just an average, just high, and that doesn't include the 400 High Street, which is would consider an outlier, but aside from that, it's 440,000. So for 440,000, we could do a lot more demolition and cleanup and prevention, or we can, reduce it down to 300,000 a year that we spend using our own guys and probably do just as much.
All right, just to read this into the record, I got an email from Chief Pond from the fire department. There's a financial request item number 6 on tonight's agenda, financial transfer 64,463 from demolition to pay for maintenance supervisor, maintenance demo worker. In my opinion, this is a proactive way of addressing numerous vacant, abandoned properties in the city. The first step in the process of getting the issue of vacant, abandoned buildings under control is by a single entity responsible for all these properties. Building Commissioner Cody plans to appoint a property maintenance supervisor and demo workers to oversee the maintenance of these properties to lead us on the right path to solving the very complex, dangerous issues for the city. Thank you for your support, Chief Pond. Just want to read that in the record. We got that email tonight. Any other questions?
Make a motion to approve it.
I just have a
Yeah.
technical question back to your earlier comment about the amount. Do we have flexibility because it's an internal transfer so that if we approve the whole and he just doesn't use it, it will just stay in the account that it's in? I mean,
We'll go to free
since it's
cash.
not a free cash.
It's not a free
It's-
cash
it's an
transfer, so that's,
internal
for
transfer.
me,
So can we,
Amend it or change?
we can't,
Change it,
we-
can't change it.
we can't amend or change
right,
the order.
but the technical question I have is, if we approve this whole amount and he doesn't need it and he just leaves it there, is
Then
that okay?
Yeah, it rolls
So
over
it
to.
doesn't, it's not gonna
It'll roll back to free
hurt
cash.
anything or
No, I-
create a fiscal problem if we
No,
just
no,
understand it.
You're taking from demo, but you're telling us you don't need the 64,000 in demo.
You're just not
You've-
gonna take it all.
Right now, in the budget for demo, to the best of my knowledge here, I'm gonna give you exact numbers. We have, approximately 150, okay? And half of that is going to demolish 190 Chestnut Street, which is a bank-owned, and we're leveraging the insurance money. So I spend it out to the private contractor, the insurance company reimburses us for so we're not actually spending it, that's just the fast action on a fire property. Next to it is 188 Chestnut, which is ours, and it's on this list. We are removing that as well. So what we'll end up, transferring this money, I believe it's 60, is it?
64,463.
64, we probably have about 74 visible in the line item right now, and so it'll take out whatever's needed, and whatever's not is, gonna sit inside the demolition line item. If something happens between now and June, like the armory bids come back, that is out to bid for 2 weeks, we get reimbursed from the bank, the 75 plus the balance, we'll probably have enough to remove the back of the armory.
Okay, so
Which is
our question is, you're okay till next fiscal year? Even by taking this out, you think you're gonna get to the end of the year?
Yeah, I believe so.
Right, so then if you didn't use all of the 64, you would just transfer it back,
He'll leave it
Into
there, it goes
demo?
into free cash.
or you're just not gonna take it out?
Yeah, either way, it's
Doesn't
nothing,
matter.
nothing happens.
It's just paper.
Yeah, in essence,
Alright.
you're getting towards the end of the year, if, you know, when he asked for,
So you
let's
might
say
move it or you
it was
might not.
27,500 for the supervisor. He's
Right.
saying you're not gonna need that for the full year, you're only gonna need 10, just as an
For the end
example.
of the year.
So in
Right,
essence,
I
it's
get that.
17,500 staying there. But the way this order is we only can act on this.
Correct.
The money really isn't gonna go out though, only amount needed. Does that help?
Right,
Okay.
so you're not gonna move the 64.
I don't believe it has to be completely moved
Okay.
out, but
Yeah, Peter?
Brian Smith is not here with us anymore, so I don't know what the new procedure is.
Well,
Damien, on this amount, and I understand it's needed and to have the supervisor, next fiscal year, you said you're going to the mayor and he's going to approve these positions?
I was told that he's already put those in, into the budget for the three. But, you know, to be clear, you know, it's not something we'd be looking to hire the other positions. Now, we really want to get the supervisor, see how that goes, and then move forward.
To get that lined up to plan. I mean, I'm glad Counselor Sullivan here sort of stated how much this can be an asset to the city and help with the cost of a lot of the buildings we have. I mean, whatever we do is a big help, but we got a long ways to go. We got a lot of buildings we got to take care of, and anything we can do to help, I think, is an improvement.
I'll second Jimmy's motion.
motion is to approve, it was seconded. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for trying something.
Can always try.
Moving along.
All right, make a motion to move from the table. Item number 7, all's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Financial request of $7,630 from professional services to pay director.
Which director?
And I think this is Wisteria Hearst. Yep, come on in. No, from professional services to.
Oh, I see it.
Hi, how are you? Good. Tell us a little about what's going on.
This has to do with a final budget this year that was made in the where I was hired. These two, the professional were not included. So then I was hired at a rate higher than what was budgeted. So this is amount's been adjusted in next year's.
All right, and you are the new director for Wisteria Hearst. And name for the record and.
Kate Chrysler.
Yep.
Welcome. I got a text from home saying it was on.
Oh, just have it closer to you when you're speaking, that's all.
Kate Chrysler, Director of Wisteria.
Wisteria Hearst director hired at a higher rate than budgeted.
So,
Last one?
doubt it.
No, because whatever was budgeted, they're hired at a higher rate than what was in the budget.
What was budgeted?
I don't have the book on me. I'm not gonna put her on the line for that.
I might have the book if you want me to go get it.
Book, you can get the book. Now, the professional services, is that part of your line item, or that's coming, because that comes from,
Yeah, the transfer was prepared by the auditor.
because I'm wondering, professional services, it's 12442-53010. Do you have that as,
Is this it?
Right here, the monument,
well, this is the museum, the director's here.
50,000, is it?
That's what's in-
So 51, but I'm looking for the professional services.
Wouldn't it have to be the same? Do we have something from the auditor?
That professional services, that, what's that come out of, looked up?
That's what I'm trying to find it.
I'm looking
What
at
line
it.
item? You have professional services for public safety.
Does that, what's the time frame of the 76? Is it for May and June?
Yeah, it's for mid-May to
So it's half of May?
So what is,
So it's 4 or 5, 6 weeks?
what's the total?
If it was budgeted at 50,051, add the 7,000.
It's the week.
So what's your total salary now?
Microphone's not on, it says,
Huh?
no, it's the lights on, but
Oh, I got it. Sorry. Thank you.
right.
Nothing from the auditor?
All we have is the request. Really nothing from the auditor.
Well, I'll make a motion to table till we can get clarification where the money's coming
Well,
from, if we can't see where it's coming from.
No, I'll find out where it's coming from. I mean, I'm not gonna,
Right.
she was given a contract.
Right.
That's not her fault. That's.
Well, I'm
something-
just
that's
saying,
No, you're correct,
I'm
Lynette.
not, I'm not saying she shouldn't
She's
get
not
the
gonna work
money
for
she was
free.
hired
No, no.
for, but I'm saying,
No, I'll track down where that's from. I'm not gonna keep her. She was given a
is
contract.
this Bellamy?
Yes.
Head of the department, yeah,
I can't read it.
yeah.
Well, I make a
So-
motion that we pass it and we can
Right.
gather the
And-
information before our next city council
Yeah,
meeting.
for the next meeting, if we can't get the right answer, then, we'll deal with it then, but, I
Second.
mean, she has.
A second.
So motion is to approve, and then we'll look up the line items.
Before the council meeting. I hear is until May.
Right.
Right. Well, maybe we'll have a meeting that night before.
All right, so the motion is to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So you're approved. It'll go to the
Thank you.
next full city council meeting, which is
May 3rd.
May 3rd. That's technically, but there could be a special meeting, that type of stuff. But in essence, it has to go to the full council, get voted on. When approved, it'll be back in place.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
Need that line item one more time. Okay. All right. Item number 8, make a motion to move from the table. All those in favor? All those opposed? Transfer from, request 3,500 from contracted services to overtime. And I'm gonna pull that up in a second. This War Memorial contracted services. Anyone here from the War Memorial? Yeah, please. Funds required to cover overtime costs for War Memorial custodian who is backfilling other positions in other buildings as needed. Signed off, it looks like by Bill Fuquay. No? Might not have been getting notice, which it happens.
So it's just coming.
It's
out of
really,
one
it's,
line
it's,
and into
yeah,
another.
from one line to the other, and it's, the War Memorial, which they, every now and then towards the end of the year, they do this for the custodian stuff, because they're short-staffed or they're moving around. So it's, like, we have seen this before.
Yeah, I think they're close to it, yeah. Second.
Motion is to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, make a motion to move item number 9.
So move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Or that in accordance with chapter 44, section 53A, the city council hereby accept the provisions of the estate planning outreach grant. Anyone here for that one? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, we'll check on it, Jimmy, and then we'll go from there. Hello, sir, how are you?
Good evening, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so we have the estate planning outreach grant. Want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. For the record, Andrew Smith, Conservation and Sustainability Director here in the city. The Mount Grace Land Trust administers a small mini-grant program for DCR, and basically what you do, if you want to, is say, Dear Mount Grace Land Trust, we would like to conduct an outreach event for landowners who have, multiple acres on their property. And the goal is to target landowners who own large parcels of land and provide them with educational materials that they can use to decide whether or not conservation agreements are or are not right for them as they think long-term about what they would like to do with their property. So the goal would be to target property owners in West Holyoke, which is where the large parcels of land are. It's a small $350 grant. It would just be, the purpose would be for mailings, renting a spot, refreshments, speakers fees, and the only agenda that I would have for this would be to have an outside expert from a land conservation organization just present a buffet of options that might be available for people to consider if they would like to preserve their land. No hard sell, just have you considered this as a scenario going forward? So it's a completely it's on the state fiscal year. There's no other matching requirements, and it's just a small amount of money for basically a neighborhood meeting.
All right, so it says grant must be spent and completed by June 7th. Do you have a date established for it, or?
No, I wanted to make sure I was okay with going forward before I started to plan in earnest, but I think I can spend $350 before June 7th.
And where are you gonna hold the meeting?
We're thinking about either doing it up at the mountain, Mount Tom, up at the DCR Pavilion, or potentially, I'm not sure, Pilsdolski Park, what the rate is for renting that. It's in West Holyoke, yeah. Yeah, but I haven't decided if that's a good option based upon the rental fee. If you know, like, what the rental fee is or that sort of thing, then that would be really helpful if I could touch base with you offline to, okay. But any guidance on a venue that would be convenient for everybody? My only goal is to make it easy for people, so I think that'd be preferable if you know of a good location.
Any questions?
Can I have a question?
Sure, Linda.
So the grant is through DCR,
Correct.
and what is the goal of, I know it's to educate, but within the framework of it,
I think
what is the goal?
the goal is to have people, say for example, there's a large landowner in West Holyoke who, he passed away this past year. Everybody kind of knows Al Carl. He was, wonderful, sort of larger than life personality. He passed away, and now his son is in charge of all the farmland that he owned at the time, which is just one example of one family that has multi-generational commitments to the land. And so I think the goal would be to have somebody before, I guess it's not really to say you must conserve your land or it's the only thing that you can do, but just to have somebody say, these are the options that if you're interested in conserving land, you could pursue. Like, you don't have to give it to a land trust. You could do, a tax write-off or a donation or a sale to a conservation entity, or, various sort of, trusts, family trusts, that sort of thing, to preserve the land going forward. So it's really not, the goal isn't to say, let's take a bunch of land and put it in places where people can't access it forever. The goal is to just kind of facilitate the decision-making process for people as land starts to change over from generation to generation.
And who's gonna teach on this? Do you have someone yet? or-
There's a gentleman named Pete Westover who's an expert in this, but I haven't really determined who we want to use yet. So I don't really know yet, but there are people that we have contacts with.
Will it be a public notice meeting or
Correct.
an invitation to the people who meet certain criteria?
I think I would like to just do a mailing and a public notification. So I think that's what I'd like to do.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion is approved. A second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
I think I can vote on 11 and 12 out of all those.
Okay, so number 10 is free cash, which goes to overtime, that you'd have to excuse yourself. 11 is sick leave buyback, that has nothing to do with you, so I think you're okay there. Vehicle repairs, you're okay there, that's 12, there's no conflict. 13 is the Shannon grant, which we talked about last night with legal. I think that one you should abstain. And then the Safe and Successful Youth Initiative grant, I'm not sure.
Well, just to be safe, if you could just take out of order item 11, then go to 12.
Okay,
Motion to take out of order?
okay. Motion to take out of order. Item number 11, all's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Item 11 is a request of $134,896 from free cash to pay sick leave buyback. All right, anyone coming in, or?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Gotcha.
again, the notice was, there was a request initially for $168,000 for contractual buyouts, and now it's, been transferred to $134,896. With that, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Okay, we have two patrolmen that retired or left the department, are retiring, and the total buyout was $179,369.99. We currently still have in the buyout, we have $45,522.81. The difference is $134,847.18. Contractual.
Yep, it's contractual. Now, remember when the chief was here, he was saying that there was buyouts, but someone was carrying over to next year, or is that one of these?
No,
No, okay.
that's correct, and that has been accounted for and adjusted. These are the numbers we need for this year's portion. and
These two are gone, they're officially gone, nothing carried over next year.
That's correct.
The person who is gonna retire will wait till next year.
Correct. And it'll be adjusted in next year's budget requests.
Any questions?
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yep, Peter?
Question, Captain, is this new people that just retired?
This is,
Not unaccounted, wasn't scheduled to?
no, we had three unanticipated.
Three of them?
We do our best to anticipate and ask the guys who's gonna retire, but we had three that were, just kind of pulled the plug later, and it was a surprise to us prior to submitting last year's budget.
Okay, and what was the total? What is this gonna cover for the total amount of employees?
I'm not sure the total, but, because we had some in there that we already distributed, but the total needed now is $179,369.99. But we have over $45,000 still in those buyback accounts.
Okay.
The request would be the difference that we need.
You stated a number, I don't know what's on our number here. What, 134?
134,896 is what.
Is that what you stated, 134?
134,847.18.
47 minutes.
Well, whatever, okay.
These are always the hard ones, in the sense of, you're asking around, are you looking to retire or not? And, you go by what you have. Are there any other techniques we can use in order to try and better guesstimate? Because it really is a guesstimate as to what to do.
Well, last time when Chief Nieswanger was here, Councilor Jordan had asked the chief to take like an average of like a 5-year average, plus try to work in, like we have a large amount of retirements probably in the next 5 years coming, big group of guys, and we're absolutely doing our best to look at that. So I'm not sure if the average would work, but we're doing our best. We all, and we may try to overshoot so we don't have to come back in the future, and then any unspent funds obviously will come back to the city. But we always do our best to try to anticipate.
No, but legally, you can't ask a person for a definite answer, right?
No,
No.
but guys are usually pretty good.
Yeah, you just kind of feel it out.
Yeah, and then things happen, people just,
No, these are hard ones, there's no right answer to it. Is there a motion?
Motion to pass it.
Motion is to
Second.
approve, seconded, all is in favor? All is opposed? Suspend the rules, take up item number 12, remove from the table, or from the agenda, all is in favor? All opposed? A request from free cash of $20,000 to pay for vehicle repairs. Tell us a little
Yes.
bit about that.
yeah, well, basically, as you're well aware, we asked for a long time for 6 cruisers, and we definitely understand the city's in tough financial times, so we were very grateful to get 3 at the time, and we understand that. The problem is when we buy cruisers, we do get the extended warranty, but it's only good for 100,000 miles roughly on our frontline fleet, which is the cruisers that we're talking about, we put about 90,000 miles a year. So those extended warranties don't really do us any good or too good. So what we do is, the problem we're running into now is we're running into major repairs. Some of our frontline cars are approaching 200,000 miles, and Officer Chip Kevitz advises me that we're talking suspension repairs, transmissions, some motors, major expenses. So that would be the 20,000 just to keep these cars running till the end of the year.
I've been trying to get you guys cars for the last 3 years.
Try to get you SUVs.
Right. We appreciate
You got the
that.
3. You only got, did you get 3 SUVs
Yes,
this time?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
That seems to be the most practical way now. I mean, cars are kind of gone.
Yeah,
already.
well, Ford stopped making the Crown Vic. There's a smaller version, and most of our guys, as you see them, are tall, bigger guys, and it's the vest, and it shrinks. When you start putting computers and all of the other equipment in, they basically turn into a one-man vehicle, and sometimes we try to have, especially when we're doing training of new officers and reserves, 2 men in the vehicle, and then it shrinks the cage, all kinds of problems. I think the movement across the country is to the SUVs.
Yeah, they're safer too.
Yes.
Is there a motion on this one?
Take a motion to approve it.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed?
All right, that's it for me.
All right, we'll go
Thank you, Jim.
back. Get rid of the next 2, and then we'll go back to the last one. Move on to item number 13. Make a motion to remove from the table.
So moved.
All's in
Second.
favor? All's
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
This is that the city council accept, in accordance to chapter 44, section 53A, the Shannon Safety Initiative Grant, which this year, how much did we get for this one?
The total amount for the Shannon this year is $479,594.20. The police department's portion of that, it's a partnership grant. As you know, we usually get that every year. Our portion this year is for our gang suppression unit that we run on the weekends and throughout the spring and summer to deal with gang members approaching them and keeping them on their heels. That's $67,186.80. We also have $24,947.52 for our mobile community policing. I think we're all well aware of that. And then another $9,603.36 for the pedestrian bike. Totaling for the police department out of the Shannon grant is $101,737.68. The remaining funds will be divided up through our partners. I can list them if you'd like.
Yeah, it's, it would be the sheriffs, right? The
Yep, the Boys and Girls Club,
Boys and girls?
Chicopee Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, Career Center, Neary School, Holyoke High School, River Valley Counseling, Holyoke Community College, Hampden County Sheriff's Department, the Gandera Center, and the Chicopee Housing and Holyoke Housing Authorities.
Gandera, what's Gandera getting?
Mental health, Gandera Mental Health.
What are they getting?
Oh, I do not have it broke down completely. Do you have that? No, I
They
don't
still
have
owe
it.
us money.
Oh, okay. I'm not
We're
sure.
not gonna say no to the grant, but
I would hope not.
just putting that out
Yeah,
there,
okay,
you know?
great.
So just to remind everyone, especially those who are watching at home, we accept the grant, it goes to the police department, which then you allocate it out to those areas.
Right, we're the fiscal
Yeah.
agent.
You're the fiscal watchdog.
There you go.
Can't steal that, Kevin, assuming.
Oh, yeah.
This is standard, you guys get, is this less than last year, or roughly the same, or how much less?
I want to say it's a 7% decrease. I think it was around a 7% decrease, and the year before that was, I believe, 8%. So it's been going down a little, but it's still a significant amount of money for the city.
No, it's any type of money you can get helps, but has it been decreasing over the last 3 years, or has it?
Decreasing.
Decreasing, yeah,
Decreasing,
yeah. But has it been the last 3 years decreasing, or was it just these last 2 years and maybe it's gonna come back, or what do we have for a forecast on that, do we know?
We don't know the forecast, but like I said, it's been going down 8% last year, it's 7, I believe, this year.
Linda, sorry.
Thanks. What would you say it costs to administer it, given that you have all these other partners in it?
Well, it's,
It's not a lot of.
yeah, it's not a lot of
Administration?
hours. It's just they send in their invoices. It's a rubber stamp
So
thing.
it's
When we
not-
send it forward,
It's
it's
not heavy.
not heavy. We're not worried about it.
Okay,
It's
thanks.
definitely worth its weight in gold, to be honest with you.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is to approve. It was seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 3-0, and Jimmy had to abstain. Next one is make a motion to remove from the table item 14, which is the Safe and Successful Youth Grant.
So moved.
Those in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Tell us a little about this one.
This is another reoccurring grant. This one's it has an end date. It starts immediately, and it has an end date of 6/30 of 2017. So it's a lengthy grant. It's a total of $1 million, 50,000 of which goes to the police department, and the rest is spread out through the partners. It's a multi-layered, proven strategy for reducing youth violence in the Commonwealth. SSY combines public health and public safety approaches to eliminate community violence and to put youth on a pathway to success. This is proven youth, proven at-risk youth. It's been around for a while, and it does good. Partners include the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club, Career Point, River Valley Counseling, Hampden County Sheriff's Department.
Excuse me. Go ahead, Linda. Sorry, I'm just making
Okay.
sure there's no match. I know there's not, but I always look.
All right. So is that amount about the same as it's been in the past, or is it decreasing also?
That's roughly around the same.
Thank you.
Peter, you have a question?
Yeah, Captain, well, how long is this utilized? How long do you get to spend? Is it 1 year or within a certain period of time?
This grant contract is to June 30th of 2017. We're hoping to, obviously reapply and have another one smoothly flow in place seamlessly when this one runs out, as we usually do. But there's never any promises.
You get 50,000 of it. The rest gets allocated out to the other departments. With your 50, what do you do with that?
Well,
Like, kind of rough.
For the SSY program, that's one of those where if we're ever gonna ask if it's kinda, we're the fiscal, I don't wanna say watchdog, but we're the fiscal agent there. But, we process all of the invoices, and the 50,000, it kind of pays a salary or part of a salary for 3 different, officers who are involved in that grant to lessen, the impact, on our department. But that's one of those where we don't get a lot when you look at it, $1 million, but we're looking at it as the community as a whole. Is it great for the community? Is it us doing our part? And my answer is absolutely. So this is one where we're willing to step up for a short amount of the grant, for a small part of the grant to really do something that has a great impact on the overall city.
Would the others not get their share if it didn't come through the police department?
We're the municipal, it has to come through the municipality.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a management fee?
Yes, exactly.
Motion?
I was going to make a motion.
Oh,
No.
me
Go
too.
ahead. Motion to approve the grant?
Second. We were on the same page.
Yeah, I guess so.
Motion is to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? step traffic grant, 75,000.
Yes.
All right, so make a motion, remove from the table item number 15, the traffic enforcement grant for 75,000.
So moved.
All's in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
All's opposed?
Okay, the STEP traffic grant is a sustained traffic enforcement program. That's what the STEP stands for. It's our second year applying for and getting it. Last year, we received $150,000 to target 10 intersections in the city, which we did. And this year, we got $75,000 we applied for, and were awarded $75,000 to target 10 intersections in the city. The 10 most crash intersections, highest at risk. They're most dangerous intersections, and they are, they're determined by crash data. And I believe I emailed those lists. You should have all gotten the list of the 10.
We did get a list.
Okay, so that's that. Basically puts officers out on the street to run traffic in the areas and the roadways leading up to those intersections to try to make an attempt to reduce accidents.
Go ahead.
And if I remember that list correctly, I think there was only one intersection on it that didn't have a light at the top of Apremont.
Correct.
So I have put in for that to get a light up there, because I don't think anything's gonna decrease
Right.
on
well,
the
they- well, they-
NASCAR race speedway, I call it.
Based on the crash data, you know, that's another tool you can use to push for that, because it's one of our 10
of the
intersections
worst, so-
determined by the crash data that it's dangerous.
So I have put in for that, and I appreciate that you helped to document that.
Perfect.
Thanks.
If I can add, just one thing, on that step grant last year, Homestead and Westview Road was our #1 most dangerous intersection. And through the grant, we were able to change that, so that's no longer our #1 most dangerous intersection. So it just shows you the effectiveness of this enforcement.
Positive impact, for sure.
Thank you. I know the people on Mountain Road want to get on the list, too.
There's no match to this one. I'm actually looking for it and I don't see it, but I know it was listed, so there is no match.
No.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Let me just find it. Probably. Did this one come in last night on the agenda?
Which one?
It probably did, so that's why it's not
Late?
here. But it's not late, because we
No, I
told
mean,
them to
it
be
came
on
in
the
late.
agenda, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So, it's on the agenda, it was received within time for the open meeting law, so that's fine. All right, so it's a motion to what?
Approve?
It was seconded? Motion is to approve. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Now back to item number 10.
Motion to take number 10 off the table?
All's in favor? All's opposed? This is a request of free cash of $150 to pay for overtime. Based on previous projections, we asked for an additional $200,000 from free cash. I'd like to give that request leave to withdraw. At this time, I'm requesting $150. Chief. So with that, I will turn it over to you guys.
Okay, I'd just like to start this conversation by saying that we absolutely understand the tough fiscal times that the city's in. We understand the difficult position that the city councilors are in, trying to keep an eye and manage and make sure everybody's fiscally responsible with their budgets. With that said, I produced a little outline here, I believe you each have in front of you, just to kind of go over.
Hang on a sec.
What
I
outline
don't
do you
think
have?
we
Did you-
have it.
Yeah, we did. He handed it out. This one here.
Oh,
that
yes,
one? Okay.
okay, I do have that.
The request?
Yeah, I'd just like to use that as kind of an outline to go over kind of where we're at. In 2015, our total expended Holyoke Police Department budget was $12,334,000, and that's including the $95,000 that we requested during that fiscal year for additional overtime funds. In 2016, our adopted budget by the council this year is $12 million, just over $12 million. The three requests that we're here for tonight, just briefly, and we'll talk about it. is $150,000 for overtime, the buyouts for $135,000 roughly, and the $20,000 for motor vehicle repairs adds up to $12,305,000, which is approximately $29,000 under what would be level funding from last year. Taking into consideration that July 1st, each officer in the police department, supervisors and patrolmen, received a 2% raise. The 2% raise increased our budget by over $101,000. If you take that $101,000 and you add it to the $29,000 from the previous year, that's a reduction of $130,000. I've attached a sheet that basically shows you, I got that from Kate McCoy, our payroll, just the bare bones number. Now, also, just to keep in mind that each officer that got a 2% raise, when they work overtime, whether grant or city overtime, that's a higher rate that each officer gets. So that $130,000 is extremely conservative out of our budget. I'm just trying to show you that the city council had asked us to live within our budget and within our means, and asked us to show cuts. I'm showing cuts that we did make, and I'm trying to show you in the numbers to prove it. So that's kind of where I'm at with this outline.
Okay, so just to back up, you're saying the 2% raises or just budget increases is 101,464 for each officer overtime rate.
That's correct.
So based on this sheet, where am I looking to see what?
I'm sorry, if we can back up, that's salary.
Yeah,
Their
yeah,
salary
yeah.
increase, okay.
So where on this sheet am I looking for what plans you have put in place to help cut the budget?
Well, it's not, the cuts that we made, and plans that we put in place are not in this sheet. I think the numbers show you that there's a reduction. I can tell you, I can assure you, there are less police officers on the street in the last 3 months. And I know you asked the chief for a plan, but I'll just hit this. There are less police officers on the street in the last 3 months than there have been in the last 3 years. I don't think I think it would be irresponsible for me to sit here publicly and discuss, what shifts or what time of day or what neighborhoods we've cut in.
I'm not
Right.
asking, I never said that.
Okay. I just want to throw that out there. It's
No.
But it's just the
We've been
numbers.
through this before.
Okay.
So my request and this whole committee's request, it really came from your side because Councilor Soto was here and he said, the captains are having meetings in order to come up with cuts or some plans for cuts, kind of like what the fire department did. They can point to stuff that they did to have an impact on the budget. Brownouts, no deputy driving around, different shifts, that type of stuff. So they've shown us a plan. I'm not asking for a plan of what shifts or who's out, and what cuts have you made?
Okay, well, we've had, during the day shift, like on a Monday through Friday, if the day shift supervisors are short, they're to call me and I go down and cover. We've took our traffic unit, a supervisor and a patrolman, and absorbed them back into patrol. And
Okay, so say that again? What-
the traffic unit. We've absorbed them back into the Patrol Operations, Field Operations Bureau. We've also absorbed our community policing unit back into patrol operations. We've also made some moves and put 5 supervisors on the midnight shift and 6 supervisors on each of the other additional shifts.
So 5 supervisors have been moved from day shift to midnight shift, or how?
No.
Say that again.
At one point, we had like four supervisors on days, 4 on the 4 to 12, and 4 on the midnight shift. We've pulled supervisors from other assignments and moved and increased the field operations numbers. That's where we were, when we're doing our analysis, that's where our overtime was coming from. So we increased the amount of supervisors on each shift to decrease the amount of supervisor overtime.
Okay, so walk me through that one. In essence, how many supervisors do you have to have on each shift?
Each shift you have to have 2 supervisors.
Okay. So 2 supervisors each shift, you had 4 on each shift. You were just saying 4, 4,
Correct.
4.
The way the groups line up and the 3 shifts, that's how they're spread out.
So now instead of, one of the classic examples that we were always talking about with the chief was, you have all 4 captains on the day shift.
Correct.
Why weren't they spread out over all 3 shifts? That was one of the questions.
Well, the captains do administrative work, phone calls and things that have to get done during the day. The only time, and I've been on over 20 years, there's never been a captain on each shift. The only time there was a captain, going back in my understanding of history, in the organizational structures, you would need a deputy chief, which that position was eliminated before my day. If you had a deputy chief, then you'd be able to throw a captain on each shift.
Okay, Linda, you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, these are questions that come to us, and I know that you've just stepped into the hot seat, if you will, temporarily.
Sure.
So, you're it tonight.
I'm it.
But,
Let me have it.
you know, in fairness, to you, we've asked the chief for months for a plan to cut the overtime, and I appreciate that you're sharing with us some of the shifting around that has been done. But the vote that we took on the budget was to level fund at the 12 million. And I understand, you know, you're putting in the other 300,000, you know, for comparisons to what was actually expended compared to what was budgeted. But I mean, the commitment we made to the department was the level funding. You know, and we understand economically that when raises are given, that you're then gonna have to shuffle and shift to deal with the fact that you're spending more money for each hour that you're covering. But from the public's perception, they're seeing that the department went from 3 captains to 4 captains, and then they're seeing that our chief is gonna be away for 3 months, and now a captain's gonna be the chief. And so the question that is coming up is, gee, there's an awful lot of managers in the police department. And in the tough economic times, a lot of people are saying, and this I know is not under your control, you know, the chief's gone now for 3 months. And so it's a struggle for us to support that back to the people who are paying the freight when they don't see sort of the same kind of belt tightening in this department that they've seen and felt in the other departments. So I know you're new and sitting in the seat, but I personally asked the chief months ago for a plan of how he was gonna get the overtime down. And he just simply said that there would be steps being taken in the future. So I think in fairness to the folks we represent, I'm hoping he left you with a plan, or if he didn't, that you have the discretion to make one. Because I guess for me, to vote for the overtime, I have to see a plan that's gonna say it's gonna be less, and I still can't see it.
Okay, well, to just go back to your level funding, as you said we
Yeah.
were promised. Level funding would be 12,334. If you would take back the 95,000 the previous year that we came here for, and if we'll call that number level funding, that number would be 12,238,438.
Well, and I know we could sit
Oh,
here and
million, sorry.
argue over the 300,000, but just to be clear, I'm looking at the 2016 budgeted amount, because that was the understanding that when we passed the budget, that's what we were doing. I mean, you know, you might go back and find some other extra money that got put in after, but when we budgeted for the 12 million, that was the level funding that we were budgeting to.
Okay, well, that's, respectfully, that's not level funding to the previous year. That's just, that's our budget. That was adopted.
budget.
All right,
Correct,
just one
correct.
second. And I respect that. But I will mention that the chief originally submitted a budget request for overtime of $652,000. It was cut by the mayor to $571.
Correct.
And then submitted, and it was cut to $301,000 by the council. That's a really, really tough line item. That's a big cut from the original request, and even what came over from the mayor. So, I mean, I think the numbers, as I put in front of you, I mean, it shows you that, the numbers show you that we're definitely doing everything we can to work within our budget, and with the 2% pay increases that we absorbed, I mean, that's $130,000, and that's conservative. I just don't know what more I can say.
And I hear you on that point, and I hear you from the side of the argument that says you absorbed it, but from the taxpayer side of the argument, it's that they paid it in addition to all the other things that are still being paid. I mean, I understand the point you're making. I'm not
Okay, good.
dismissing the point you're making, but at the end of the day, it's all more money, is all I'm
Right.
saying.
Go ahead, Peter. I'm just going
Yeah,
through
yeah, no problem.
last time they were here.
Captain, you know, in my thoughts, in trying to keep in line with the overtime, is there a number of employees that right now that could be causing the increase in overtime that are injured on duty or hurt or away on military leave?
Well, we do have a couple officers and a supervisor who are out injured on duty. We have 6 full-time officers that are out in the police academy right now. We coming into the warmer, are very concerned. We're coming into the warmer months where that's where more officers take contractual time off, vacation time, time owed and the like. And well, we have to fill those positions. We have to fill those cars. So we're pretty concerned moving forward.
Do you normally have a schedule, who's off? Is it based on seniority, or do you pick weeks, or, in the summertime?
Yeah, well, there's weeks that are submitted to the chief's office prior to, right around January, prior to January. And it's distributed by seniority. And there's rules in place to keep us from letting too many officers, like 3 officers per shift on vacation, things like that. There are rules in place and they're followed, but they're contractual rules. So as guys take the vacation time and time off, we have to place them on overtime.
And do you find a certain time, certain shift that possibly, I mean, trying to look at, when we were asking the chief of overtime used and how are we going to keep it under control, is there certain shifts that maybe utilize more overtime than others?
Yes, the 4 to 12 shift definitely utilizes more, and we've made adjustments and put extra bodies, more bodies on the 4 to 12 shift than any other shift. In the summer, it's definitely the 4 to 12 shift.
Okay, thank you.
Also, if I may, Councilor Vacon, part of our plan also has always been to utilize, to recruit, train, and utilize reserve officers to help, and that has helped. It's hard to quantify that over the summer, but we have had reserves working all last summer. The problem is we just hired a group of them, and we're about to hire, I think, very near future, to replace some of our retirements, the remaining 7 that we have. One of the things that we're also planning to do is hire 18 reserves, at least on paper, to start trying to get them a little bit of training, because the faster that 18 reserves gets up and running, the faster they can help us on the streets and the curve overtime. But the reserve is a big part of our plan, the reserves, and we have been keeping them functioning and having them drive cruisers, and it's it's just hard to quantify everything that we're doing, but we really are making every effort and absolutely respect the state that the city's in.
It is, I would just comment, it's good to hear that there are more reserve officers, because I think in the past there were only about 4 or 5 that were ever being utilized. So
Right.
how many would you say are being utilized now?
We have 7, and they work every single week, all 7 of them. And we basically put them on the 4 to 12s, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday shifts, as much as they can without interfering with their full-time jobs until we can hire them full-time. That's definitely part of our plan, but like I said, just coming right behind it, we want to hire 18.
In addition to the 7?
Well, the 7 are going to get absorbed. They're going to get hired full-time
Oh, regular.
shortly to replace retirements that are coming up fast. And, yeah, we want to hire 18 to get us to a nice level.
And I do hear your comments about summer being the popular time to take vacations, but we're just trying to get through June 30th here right now.
I'm 100% with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Also, just to make mention, Sergeant Hart just reminded me that the 150,000 overtime request is not just for sworn personnel. It's to run the entire police department. That would go towards dispatchers, records, personnel. I mean, if we need to hire the custodian for any issues on the weekend, that's department-wide. That's not just, but the bulk of it would be to fill the cruisers during the summer months.
And what is your total overtime spent so far this year compared to last year?
Not sure compared to last year, but I think so far we spent around 535.
Because I thought I remembered that we've already made a number of transfers
You have.
Yes,
this year. So we've exceeded the budgeted amount.
absolutely. We've definitely
So-
made some transfers to get, or we would not have survived to where we're at today.
Exactly.
And we have to
But
put
now
some of
we're
those.
kind of at the wall.
We're at the wall, and like I said, we're very concerned, and I definitely understand, and I have a full intention that any funds, it's not to get 150,000 and spend. Absolutely not. I mean, we give back a certain amount. I'm not sure what we've given back in the last few years, but we give back to the city anything we can put back in the general fund through the expense side and the personnel side of the budget each year. And it would be my hope that we would get to the end of the year and have some funds to give back to the general fund.
To the chair, do you know if we had any last year come back?
Question is, based on the letter, it says, previous projections were 200,000. I like to give that leave to withdraw, and the new request, new projections, 150.
Correct. And that's from making cuts and
So the 50,000 represents where you found cuts.
right, well, yeah, as time goes by, you reassess and reevaluate where you're at on a biweekly pay period basis, and we take a good look at it and try to project out to the end of the year. Like I said, the utilization of reserves was great for us. It kind of went over pretty smoothly.
That didn't violate union contracts?
No, that's what when I say that went over very smoothly, the union's been great about it. They're actually very understanding. We have regular meetings almost weekly with, the union president, and I just want to make sure we take care of any issues that may arise before they become, something that we need to, litigate down the road. So it's been good, and everybody's understanding and trying to pitch in.
Okay, so the 50,000 in cuts that since the last time we met, just call it February, where would you say the bulk of the cuts came from?
I would say just department-wide, whether it's the use of the reserves, whether it's I think there was a reduction in court time. I think,
What was the total spent on court time?
Yeah, if I may, on court, traditionally, our 5-year average is approximately 332,000 a year. This year, budget was reduced to 250,000. Right now, through the changes that we made within the department, we're projected to be under that 332 by approximately $79,000. So that's a significant cut, in excess of the 50 from the,
So what did you do to do that?
Okay, I'll tell you, the plan on that one is the chief moved, most of the court appearances are done by the narcotics guys who are out there every day pounding the pavement, and they end up testifying in court. The chief moved them to a Monday through Friday schedule to reduce the amount of days off that they have during the week. So it's a lesser impact because contractually, when you have an RDO, when you reach, I think, 10 a year, you get a full day's pay. It's a long, complicated thing, but that reduces it because now the RDOs are pretty much done for the bulk of the guys that go to court.
And what have they done with the district attorney's office on trying to cut down on people showing up when the hearing's not taking place? That was one of the issues we had, where we're sending officers in for testifying, case was continued, because the DA's office just wasn't communicating back.
Okay, well, I do believe that the chief has had conversations with the district attorney's office to try to minimize that. I wasn't present at those conversations. So I know that they took place, I just don't know what the exact.
All right, any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the transfer.
I'll second it. You actually got more information out of you than I've gotten in quite some time.
Thank you.
Please come back. No, I'm just kidding. The chief is great, and I know what you guys are doing. It's hard. If we didn't have a budget problem, we just wouldn't have these discussions, but unfortunately, it is what it is. So if there's no more questions, motion is to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? That's it. I think there's nothing else on the agenda. All right, thank you. Thank you for coming down.
Make a motion to
To adjourn?
adjourn.
You don't want to stay for a while?
Not really.
No? All right, motion is to adjourn. Don't debate it. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?